Our variety store.
2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 3 is 6.
Education multiplies their chances and places the world of opportunity in their hands. No matter where they are in the world, make sure they are prepared for their journey back to school with Western Union. School fees, books, room and board, whatever the reason. Knowledge, independence, opportunity. Western Union, moving money for better.
Ladies Room comes to you compliments of Beacon Insurance. Insurance is a promise to pay. At Beacon, we keep our promise.
Renwick and Thompson and Subway.
So this is what we got to say. Good morning to everyone that is locked on a Power 95. Welcome to your ladies' room today. Of course, once you hear the voice, you know who. Yeah, the queen decided. She said she fed up at me. At least that's what she said, right? But I will be in the ladies' room solo today. All right. I have some guests who are going to be with me today. We got some very important information that we need to share with you. Of course, right now we are in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. Right now we are at 1,000 plus cases, right? And we also have some new restrictions that we need to discuss. I know certain persons, well, some persons I should say, are still a little bit confused to what is happening. Read the regulations. So we will just get a little insight into that this morning, and we would also get a sense of exactly where we are at in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic. And with me this morning, I have Dr. Bert Lambert. Doc, good morning.
Bert Braffett. Good morning to you.
Braffett, sorry. How are you today?
Not bad, not bad.
All right. So welcome to Power 95. All right, and it is indeed a pleasure to have you this morning.
Thank you.
Yes, and to all of my friends that are listening via Facebook, via YouTube, via Twitch, and also on the network, you can feel free to shoot us your questions. All right, whatever questions that you may have, anything you need clarification on, you can feel free to ask your questions. All right. Also with me this morning, I have Miss Hercules Lambert from the Royal Grenada Police Force. She is also here. Good morning. All right, we don't seem to be hearing you. All right. All right, so just unmute your mic for me. Unmute your microphone for me.
Sorry, Karim.
There we go. Good morning and welcome to Power 95.
Yeah, good morning, Karim. Thank you for having me. Good morning to the listening audience, the Canadian public, to other guests, Dr. Braffett. Good morning to all.
Thank you so much for joining us.
All
right, so Doc, my first question is to you, right? We know that we are in the middle of this pandemic right now. Like I said, cases are skyrocketing. We also had an increase in deaths as well. But could you give us just a general sense of exactly where we are right now in Grenada?
Well, again, good morning to you and good morning to listeners. Yes, unfortunately, not in a good state.
Mm-hmm.
It's clearly significant community spread as manifested by the number of cases we are seeing every day for the last week to two. And concomitant with that, the number of hospitalizations. And once you start to get hospitalizations, you're going to start, unfortunately, to get deaths as well. Because that's the nature of this virus. It carries with it a definite morbidity, meaning illness. There's a different degree of illness is going to result amongst a number of people, not everyone, but in a significant number. And also unfortunately, along with it comes some deaths. You can anticipate that for every 100 cases we pick up, we're going to have at least one death. It might be higher. So that's the tough news to deal with, and these are the statistics actually coming out of here, many other parts of the world. So, we have the basic services, we have ventilation services, we have intensive beds, we have experienced clinicians and nursing staff at the hospital. All of that has been put in place to try to help as much as possible. But the bottom line is, as we have been saying to people from in February, if you're vaccinated, your chances of getting to hospital are much, much reduced. As a matter of fact, I heard a statistic coming out of the United States that although the efficacy of the vaccines is not as good as it was some months ago, they're still seeing almost like 99% of the people who are dying are unvaccinated. I don't know what stronger message we can send to people that it is absolutely necessary, recognizing that every single one of us at some point in time is going to be in contact with this virus. The virus is global. The virus is now here in Grenada. And even when we get the numbers down, the virus will still be circulating. And so for many months to come here after people who think, well, the numbers come down, that they have got away. No, that virus is still going to be there. So the bottom line is that people are vaccinated, follow the other modalities that we've spoken about extensively, the wearing of masks, and perhaps if I have a time, I'll go into that in a bit more detail. The wearing of masks and the social distancing and the hand washing and hand sterilization. And
Right.
all of these are important measures.
And I'm so happy that you touched on the vaccination and the wearing of masks, because we're still seeing a sort of hesitancy to this, especially vaccination. So what can you say to those persons who are still hesitant towards vaccination as a way to actually um, give you a better chance of not being hospitalized or not dying from the COVID-19 virus?
But I can only say to them, look around and see what is happening. We have, I think it was 12 or 13 deaths that we have recorded. And that number is almost certainly going to grow. And if you're vaccinated, you're very, very unlikely. The only vaccinated, one person who was vaccinated in that group that died, and this was a very elderly person in their late 90s with underlying, I think it was at least diabetes, or probably both diabetes and hypertension. So, and obviously at age 90, even though you're vaccinated, you know not, sorry, you know what's passing in the bathroom. Yeah, even though you're vaccinated, you may not build up an immunity to it because your immune system has been, with age, your immune system becomes deteriorates, wears down, and so the vaccine didn't have the effect that it would have in the overwhelming majority of the population. So the fears about the vaccine, we try to point out to people there's no need to be fearful. And indeed, and in fact, if you have, this is something I would love to point out to him, and I hope people listen carefully. It is even more important if you're diabetic, if you're overweight, if you're lung problems, heart problems, heart failure, kidney problems, liver problems, just autoimmune diseases like lupus and rheumatoid arthritis, any disease that you have, it is more important, it is even more important that you get out there and get vaccinated as soon as possible and try to put the body in a position that it can best withstand this virus when it comes in contact with it, as inevitably it will.
Right. And Doc, in terms of the mask wearing, which you touched on earlier, could you just tell us what would you recommend? Because we know there are various types of masks going around,
I'm
right?
sorry. Thank you. When corporate thought say they slip around and bring two masks and actually demonstrate it, I meant to have it here at the table, but I just have it in another room. I slip off and get it. Yeah, I you the regulations state that once you're outside of your house, you should have on a mask, and a lot of people are still not following that. I've seen a lots of people walking on the road without a mask. Now, I want you to recognize something. This virus is not just always about being in contact with someone. If I am in the area, if I go into a bank or so, or any especially air conditioned area, and there might be no one there at the moment, but someone left there 5 minutes ago or so. Not the droplets that come out from your mouth when you're breathing, they fall to the ground pretty quickly. But there aerosolized particles that remain in the air that you can't see. You would not know that someone was there. And if you don't have on a mask, you're going to inhale those particles. They're going to reach down. Actually, those aerosolized particles can reach down into your lung. And there goes it. You have the infection. So you must wear the mask. And I've actually been advocating, this is not a policy of government, but I strongly believe in it. This is a personal thing. Perhaps we may come around to making it a policy that you should be double masking when you're outside, and especially if you're not vaccinated.
Double masking.
Yeah. A number of countries they advocated that back in the winter, both in parts of the United States and parts of Europe. And with the level of prevalence of the virus in the community right now, that's the only way. And the reason I say that is twofold, really. One, when you put on the surgical mask is very important, but it can puck up a little at the sides, and so you don't have a tight fit. No, again, the face mask gives you a tighter fit, and that's better.
Right.
But so that's one thing. Having the mask as tightly fitted as possible, and I will demonstrate that. But the other factor is that sometimes some of the masks that we buy, we cannot always guarantee the quality. Hopefully, all of them are of good quality, but given that you don't want to get exposed to this, that's why I say wear two masks. If at least you should have on a surgical mask and you put a cloth mask on top of it, and a cloth mask which is double layered with a high cotton thread count on top of that facial mask, that affords you much better protection. Just on the outside charts, that batch of mask that you purchase in all good faith really were not properly made. And we have no way of knowing here. These things come from a variety of different companies. Some are going to be very careful to have their quality controls, others won't. And you just can't tell. Well, I mean,
Right.
if you take up the mask and they're defective and the loops are coming off and you see an obvious perforation, obviously you know that's a defective mask. But sometimes it's better than that.
Okay, thank you so much, Doc. So we're gonna just stick up in there for just a bit. I actually have some questions for Miss Hercules Lambert as well. Now, how has the Royal Grenada Police Force been managing? We know it has been a lot of hard work, and we must say kudos to you guys. But now, especially that we have a couple cases in the RGPF, how have we been managing?
Well, as law enforcement, we've been trained to be resilient, and we expect to be resilient and operate in difficult circumstances. I believe that being mandated to enforce the COVID-19 regulations, along with the other regulations and normal policing duties that we still expected to do, of course, it is obvious that it will be trying for our organization.
Mm-hmm.
But the non-compliance, when you walk around, as Dr. Bud Bradley said, of people still not wearing their masks,
Right.
people still not adhering, makes it even more difficult for us. Because here we are putting all our efforts in, sacrificing a lot, putting our own lives on the line, and I guess not only law enforcement, but the medical fraternity as well.
Mm-hmm.
And as an officer for over 21 years, I always say that sometimes our job entails protecting people from their own selves and from their own poor judgment, which is the reason why we have the seatbelt laws and so forth. Because people can be, I do not know, careless as to their own safety, but the RGPF is in the business of ensuring persons are safe, protecting lives and property. But it will be so heartening to us if we see our constituents and members of the public doing likewise and helping us along with this task of protecting lives in this pandemic situation.
Mm-hmm.
So the non-compliance is making it more difficult for us.
Mm-hmm.
I must say also that the role of the media in encouraging persons to comply with the regulations, because they are quite extensive and intrusive regulations, because
Definitely.
they expect persons to observe protocols in all areas, business places, homes, churches. It's a lot for the police to enforce. And
Right.
the fact that the media has joined with us in educating the public, because education is the first step, of course. We people know, most likely they'll comply.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Mm-hmm.
the excuse is less that you do not know. Although we still educating, we've seen the media reaching out to persons and encouraging persons, and persons are still not complying. And for me, as a law enforcement officer, I'm speaking personally, and I
Mm-hmm.
guess it may be the same for other officers. The non-compliance is very hard to see.
Right.
Persons not doing things to protect their own lives and the lives of their own family. That is quite confusing, because it's instinctive in human nature to want to protect themselves and
Right.
their families. And when you see persons being nonchalant, walking without masks, sitting in the shop, still playing dominoes, despite the situation that we are in,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it makes it even more difficult.
Right. And in terms of enforcement and compliance, because I mean, as someone involved in media, I get the opportunity to speak to a number of persons, and there still seem to be a sort of confusion as to what is expected right now on a day-to-day basis, in terms of curfew hours, restrictions. I mean, of course, they are the ones that cannot be misunderstood, for example, the beach hours and so on like that. But in terms of curfew hours, in terms of essential, non-essential, and especially these no movement weekends that are coming up, there still seem to be some sort of confusion. So could we just dive a little bit into that, just to provide a little bit of clarity on that?
Right, thank you. So the regulations divide the curfew periods into weekday curfew, like
Mm-hmm.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, weekday, and weekend curfew. And this law came into effect on the 4th, because we've had constant amendments to the regulation since the onset of the pandemic. So the laws continue to change as the threat increases. So the law changes so as to continue to protect people from the virus. So this new amendment came in on the 4th of September. It's quite recent, it's quite new. And so it's been out there, and the media, of course, have been on board with us, trying to educate persons, and it will expire on the 21st of September, 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess when government or executives see what is going on, they will make other changes to suit the situation on the ground.
Definitely.
So this current regulation provides for a curfew period, weekday and weekend. Weekday is from 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. daily. However, and this is the part that is confusing, Karim,
Mm-hmm.
notwithstanding that you can move during the week, right? From 5 a.m. to 6:59 p.m. Notwithstanding you can move.
Mm-hmm.
It is not just move for movement's sake, and persons are having some difficulty understanding that. Okay, so we're free to move, so we can just go. No,
Right.
the regulation allows you to move for particular reasons. for particular purposes. So it is a restricted movement still. It's not a full curfew, but it is quite restrictive as to what purposes you can move for. And persons, that I think is where some of the confusion, is coming in. So the reasons you can move in the period that allows for freedom of movement is to go to work in a business that is allowed to be open, because not all businesses are allowed to be open. So the businesses that are allowed to be open, if you're working in one of those, you can move to go to work there. If you are going to do business in one of the establishments allowed to be open, you can move for that reason. So the business is open and you're going maybe to the pharmacy, you're going to the bank, you can move for that reason.
Right.
If you're an essential worker and the law defines who are the essential workers, you can move to go to your business place to provide an essential service. If you have a medical emergency, you can move for that reason as well. If you are going to exercise for 1.5 hours with your family member or alone, so football matches, cricket matches, these are not allowed with team members, right? Because the law is trying to keep you in that family setting where you are avoid being exposed to other persons outside of your family setting as much as possible, right? Because the more persons you are exposed to, the higher risk of acquiring the disease. So the whole intent of the law is to keep people within their little household setting as much as possible, and you move only for these 4 reasons if you have to move. You're going to work, you're going to do business in one of the places there, you're exercising for 1.5 hours, or you're going to the beach, and for a medical emergency.
So essentially, a police officer can pose the question to you if you're outside as to what is your reason for being outside.
Right. Okay, it's not just be free to move. No.
So if it's not for one of these reasons, then
yes,
then you could find yourself in some problems.
Right. So
and I wanted to clarify that because there is a video that is circulating, right, on making the rounds on social media and so on. You know, with it seemed to be someone was trying to sell some items, right, by the side of the road, and it seems as though they were approached by the police and they were threatened to be arrested because they do not have a legal, so to speak, reason for being outside.
Right.
So
right.
So that is under the jurisdiction of the police at this time.
Of course, because the regulation says the businesses that are allowed to be open, it states it clearly, besides the essential workers, right? So essentially, they're in a category for themselves, and then the businesses that are allowed to be open. So if you're selling and you're not falling under the categories established by the regulations, of course, the police have the power to arrest or to issue a ticket. They do have options as to how they treat with the situation.
Now, I noticed as well, just following the news and so, that one police in an interview was speaking the police jurisdiction in terms of entering property and enforcing the regulations.
Yes.
So it was to the effect that police can actually enter your property or enter your home and so without a warrant for the sake of enforcing the regulations. So could you just shed some light on that, please?
Well, it's quite clear and self-explanatory. You can enter. Remember, it's an Emergency Powers Act, right? Emergency powers are activated for a particular time and in crisis situations, right? As we are facing now. We are a population of 100,000. If we keep having 2-3 deaths every day due to the pandemic, we have officers not being able to perform their duties to secure the nation. We have doctors and nurses falling ill, and the state cannot be run efficiently. It will, of course, end up in a crisis situation. So we are trying to avoid being there or getting to that point. But if we continue on that trajectory as we're going now, of course, we're going to get there. So it's the operative word here is emergency powers, right? And it is to protect everything. It may seem restrictive, but everything is to protect persons and to protect people's lives, right? So even as officers, if we're not going to do an essential service, we should not be outside as well, just landing. So it also applies to us. It applies to the doctors and the nurses and the persons who create the law as well. they are restricted in what they can do as well. So it's not restricting the persons and the public,
Right.
but everyone, right, is under this law. And this is not a strange provision. The Pre-Larceny Act provides for officers to enter buildings without a warrant as well. And this is not under an emergency act. So persons may seem to be alarmed, but there are other laws that provides for entry without a warrant as well. So it's not something to be alarmed about.
Right. And as we on the issue of restriction of movement, let us discuss passes for a little bit, because person seems to think, well, once you have your passes, like you have a ticket to sort of do your own thing on your own time kind of thing. So let's dive a little bit into that. What is expected of persons with a pass, and what qualifies you to own a pass?
Right. So remember, I explained there are two periods for the lockdown. There is the weekday restrictions and weekend restriction, which is a lot more restrictive than the weekday restrictions, right? If you are moving, as I said, for the 4 reasons, during the weekday to go to business, to go to work, you do not need a pass. You just need to explain to the officers, look, my business space is allowed to be open. I'm going to work there. I'm going to do business there. You do not need a pass. However, the passes will kick in when the curfew period, the strict curfew period, is in place. For example, from 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. the next morning, you will have to show a pass within those periods. And that will be for essential workers, and that will maybe satisfied by having an ID as well. Businesses that need to operate during those times will have applied to the Commissioner of Police and will have been issued passes by the Commissioner of Police for that reason. So, and then for the weekend pass, that is where the weekend period, that is very restrictive, that is where the passes will become essential. For example, farmers are classified as essential workers under the regulations. But for the weekend period, they are only qualified as an essential worker if they have permission in writing. So for a farmer, and I want persons to pay particular attention to this, for a farmer to be able to move during the strict lockdown period, no movement period, from Friday the 10th to Monday the 13th, you must have permission in writing. So you just write and ask the commissioner, look, I'm a farmer, I need to go to my farm on those days. I'm asking for a pass. So unless a farmer or a fisherman cannot show his pass during the strict lockdown period, he will not be able to move.
Okay.
Right? So once you're an essential worker, you will have permission to pass there. If you're going for COVID-19 vaccination or you're going for testing, you are allowed to move under the strict no movement period. If you have a ticket to travel on a particular date during that weekend, you can move. However, the person who is transporting you must have a pass, because when he's going back, he will be stopped by the officers. Right? So these are the reasons that you will need a pass for the strict lockdown period.
So what if it's like a family member or so that is available to take you to the airport at the time?
Yes, so you only need the person who is traveling will have the passport and the ticket to prove, but the person who is transporting you will have to get a pass, especially for on the return when you're no longer in the vehicle, and the officer can, of course, verify. Look, I just took somebody to the airport. Okay, you may well meet another officer.
Right.
So it is advisable that you apply for a pass, especially for the return journey.
Okay. And as we on the weekend, could we just, I mean, I know it is written and so, but there's still a confusion as to the hours of restriction for the weekend. So could you just remind persons of that, please?
Right. So the restriction is from 5 p.m. on Friday to 5 a.m. on Monday. So for that there is no break within that. As well, there's a break during the week. You can move from 5 to 6:59. There is no break. Strictly at home. There's no beach access. There's no exercise access. There's no other access. All the businesses that are allowed to be open during the week will, of course, be closed.
Right. Okay. And of course, guys, we must say thank you so much to Escoma Variety Store, Beacon Insurance, and Western Union for making this very important discussion possible this morning. Now, Doc, my next question is to you. right now we are in a situation where we have a very overwhelmed health system, right? And something that is causing a lot of uproar by citizens right now is the establishment of the ethics committee and what was said in interviews and so on, by, of course, top ranking health officials. So could you just dive a little bit into it, and what do you think can be done at this time to improve COVID-19 response to persons who may be showing symptoms, because we know of the hotline situation, or persons visiting health centers, and so we know of the situation there. So could you just dive a little bit into it and sort of tell us what do you think can be done, or what can persons do in order to sort of better the situation and make it a little bit easier for health officials?
Okay, with respect to the ethics committee, that's something that I guess would have been discussed at cabinet level, I would anticipate. But what I can tell you in a general sense is that what can happen is that you can find yourself, or the hospital system can find itself with either shortage of personnel relative to the number of people, number of personnel, space, all of these are factors. Now, if you therefore have a situation in which somebody has a very serious underlying illness,
Mm-hmm.
you have another person who was in pretty robust and good health previously, and you have to decide who might get going to be ventilated, because you may find yourself, although there have been an additional number of ventilators, etc., brought in, we never know. This crisis we've seen it happen in other countries, and this is what we are trying to point out to people for months upon months,
Mm-hmm.
where in terms of the sudden rise in number of deaths. So what can happen in situations like this is that the medical folk on the ground might be faced with, who should I give the ventilator to? Who should I give the more specialized care to? And they would want to take that onus. That's a serious onus on anyone to make that decision. So the attempt in the formation of an ethical committee is to take that responsibility off of the direct caregivers who already are overwhelmed, who are pressured, who are traumatized themselves, because we are in the profession, we would have seen death, but the level of death that we will be seeing will far exceed that basically anyone in the profession would have seen, in terms of the period of time and the number of deaths that you might have within a given period of time. For instance, what happened on, I think it was Monday night,
Mm-hmm.
going into it was Sunday night going into Monday, I think. I can't remember which one. When we had 5 deaths anyhow at that time. That is very traumatic. That in itself is very traumatic for caregivers. So they will have guidelines, and this committee would, I'm not sure how it will be set up and how it will function, but there will be interaction between that committee and the caregivers so the responsibility is not theirs directly, but there is some independent source that will have a say in what happens. So that is as far as the ethics committee. You were raising another point.
Yeah, in terms of the strain on the health system at this point, because now we have a situation whereby, for example, persons are calling the hotline and so on, and not getting through, visiting the health centers and so on, and not getting through. And I even saw a news item whereby some persons went to be tested at one location, and there was sort of a no-show by health officials, and the reason was that they are tired, overwhelmed, overworked, and short-staffed. So could we sort of shed some light on that, and what can persons do if they are probably experiencing symptoms?
Well, I do not have any information for you on what happened where people went. Supposedly there were no health health workers there. But again, as I said, people, we anticipate that, and indeed, in fact, health workers and administrators have been working beyond the call of duty. Just about everyone, the security forces. I sat down and I was listening to, I'm not sure if her rank is corporal. Corporal, is that your rank? Lambert? Miss Lambert, or police? I know. I heard her talking about the number of occasions in which people can write to them. And I said to myself, I wonder how the RGPF is managing, given that they also have people falling sick. The health field has people falling sick. So services are not going to be as they would be for normal. What we can say to people is this: if you find yourself with certain symptoms, move straight to the hospital. If you find yourself getting suddenly short of breath, the shortness of breath, you're feeling all right, and all of a sudden you need to get up to hospital. Call the ambulance first. If you can't get the ambulance, then if you get someone who can take you up, who's adequately protected, etc. So shortness of breath, chest pain. If you start to become confused, start to find yourself significantly weakened as compared before. Any symptom, any sharp change of your symptoms, you will expect to get some fever, some muscle ache, some cough with with this virus, as with any flu-like virus. You expect to get flu symptoms. But if it goes beyond that, then you need to, don't wait at home. You need to get it hospital. You need to be on oxygen. You're going to need supplementary treatment to try to get you through this period. And especially if you're not vaccinated. But whether you're vaccinated or not, the vaccinated people will fare much better, but the unvaccinated ones definitely will need to get to the hospital as quickly as possible. Hopefully the ambulance services will be available to bring them up, because the folk will come out with the appropriate protection, etc. But if that isn't the case, individuals should find a way to the hospital. As I said, in the next few weeks, the services will not be as usual. It just can't be, because they just open up the wall with 40 plus individuals, and I believe I read somewhere there were like 27 individuals in there already. So if you continue to get the admissions at the rate that we are getting, we know that by next week, next week, that itself might be overrun. That could easily happen. And we have quite a few, recognize that we have quite a few people with diabetes in our population. And that's going to be a risk factor. Quite a few people are significantly overweight. That is also a risk factor that will make this disease much more egregious. Individuals with those comorbid factors will face a more torrid time, more likely than not.
And Doc, I mean, we almost out of time. I wish we could continue this discussion further. But in terms of the economic implications that this upsurge in cases, upsurge in deaths, these new restrictions and all of that could have on our economy right here in Grenada. I mean, we have just been added to that CDC's level 3 list, right? So in terms of the economic implications of what is happening right now, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm glad you raised that, because that is why we were fighting tooth and nail to try to avoid a situation like this, because we knew that once the country had this surge of cases, we were automatically going to be placed at a higher alert level, and that is going to mean that visitors are not going to come to the country, and with that, probably people in the tourist sector, and we know there's a significant percentage of the population that directly or indirectly relies on movement within the tourist sector. So we were trying our best to ensure that the small bit of movements of people in and out, we were able to sustain it by keeping our numbers down. And we were actually in a very, very good place. We were being applauded by the world. So no,
Right.
it's spoiled, and what we have to do is try to get the numbers back down to. Um, I think we will continue to see cases of COVID, and that has implications, especially for things like school education on the road. But we will continue to see cases even when we get past the surge. But before I go, just let me show you quickly the mask. This is a surgical mask, and this is what it's like. Properly around your ears, you stretch it down on your nose, and you bring it up so that the ridge that you find is a band here, plastic band, but you make sure it's at the base of your nose. If you wear glasses like me, you put it on, and the glasses should sit on top of the mask. Now, you notice these little pockets here, the sides, and this is where I become a little concerned. It is a good fit, but it's not a perfect fit. What gives a better fit, and on what perhaps not everyone might be able to purchase because they're much more costly, is this. This is the KN95 mask, and that gives a better fit, right? But as I said, if you typically speaking, if you have on a good quality one of these, you're fine. But for most people, they're going to probably have to have on the surgical mask, and then I advocate a proper face mask on top of this, going right around the face and keeping this well in place. The beauty of this surgical mask and the KN95 mask is that there's a layer in it, a polymer, and that polymer, polypropylene, traps the virus. It has electrostatic properties, and it traps the virus. The cloth mask would not have that. The cloth mask, by the way, there must be a high thread count. The cotton with a very high thread count. Those do not have the polypropylene in it, so they will not be as effective as the surgical mask, which has the polypropylene in it, as so too as the KN95 and the one that we use in the hospital and healthcare settings, which is the KN95, which is the as it were the Rolls Royce of masks, as it were.
All right,
So
thank you.
please, when you go outside, put on the mask and keep them on. And you can't. I just don't understand it. People see people dying around, and people are still moving around. I see it walking on the road without a mask on. Just recognize that where you walk, somebody could just have walked, as I said earlier, and you want to inhale that virus.
Yep. Thank you so much, Zedok and Ms. Hercules Lambert. Looking forward to the weekend, next couple of weeks, next couple of months. Anything you would like to say on behalf of the RGPF just before we go to persons?
Yes, Karim, I want to place on record my heartfelt thanks to the media, each and every media house, for the role that they are playing in joining their voice with ours in educating and imploring the public to please, let's all work together to beat this pandemic. It's really happening when we hear you, appealing to the public. So I really want to put on record our heartfelt thanks and ask you to continue, because sometimes the influence that you guys exert, sometimes it's different from those that we exert. We're in the uniforms, and the medical doctors, they may not listen to us as quite as they listen to you. So we thank you for that effort. It's really heartening for us. And we want to encourage persons to continue to do their best. And I say, even if it's not for yourself, do it for your family, do it for the healthcare workers. I'm not even saying the RGPF who are putting their life on the line, because sometimes the public have this kind of love-hate relationship with us. They love us sometimes and they hate us most of the time.
We know.
So do it for the healthcare workers, the hard-working nurses and doctors who have to sacrifice their time and even put their own families at risk. Do it for your sick or your grandmother who may have underlying conditions, your children. Do it for them, because as Dr. Braffett said, it beats me. When I walk on the road and I see what persons are doing, it beats me. I can't wrap my head around it. notwithstanding I'm in law enforcement, as a human being, it beats me why persons are still acting the way they're acting, So I continue to encourage persons, do it for those that we love, do it for our country.
Definitely. All right. Thank you there so much, Mr.
And also, I could add to that, do it for especially the sick ones around you and the elderly ones. We are seeing elderly people who were minding their business, doing just, and they just want to be able to enjoy some more years, a few more years of life, and you're carrying the virus home to them, right? If you're not wearing the mask when you're out.
All right. Thank you there so much, guys. And to everyone that contributed on the Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube platforms. We do appreciate you guys as well. We would definitely continue this discussion in the very near future as we all try to beat this COVID-19 virus. All right. Thank you so much. And remember, guys, that Ladies Room came to you to the kind compliments of Escuma Variety Store, Beacon Insurance, and of course, Western Union. My name is Kareem. Thank you so much for joining me today.